Welcome! Today is a good day for another build, and today it's going to be something a little bit different. We are going to be doing a frame swap. So, we're going to be taking a bunch of parts from one frame and putting it on a new frame. So, let's get into it. I have my go-go juice. I also have a special treat. Scott just came back from a trip, and he brought some of these Tunnock's caramel wafers. So let's give that a try. Yeah, wafer crisp with some caramel. Slamming. All right, let's get to it. We have here, this is a Made in USA Waterford Team Mac Edition racing bike. Now, there weren't very many of these made, and it is super lightweight. It has 753 steel, and from what I gather, it is very exclusive. I think you had to send Reynolds a brazing sample to be considered to be able to use this steel. I don't think they make it anymore. They may have reissued it, but I'll have to check the website. So this is a 130 spaced rim brake road racing bike. You can tell it's a racing bike because it has a number plate. Have I ever put a number plate on it? No, because I don't race. The fork, when I bought the frame, originally was I believe it was a carbon Ventana, but I replaced it because I don't know its history. So I had a custom one made by a friend on the internet. It has rando rack mounts. It has no paint. I just kind of clear coated it. So you can see there is some nice patina on there. See, look at that. You can see all the brazing, very cool. You can see some of the rust veins coming in. I mean, honestly, the bike is very cool, but it doesn't quite fit me. It doesn't quite fit my style. So we are going to move all of these fancy components from this frame onto our rando frame. Bigger clearances, still 130 spaced, still nice fork rake with the rando rack mounts. I'm really stoked about it. I think this is going to fit me and my style a little bit better. So let's jump in. Now, having done a number of frame swaps over the years, this is the way that I found to be most efficient. You have one stand, the more sturdy one with the bike you're going to be putting all the stuff on, and another stand that you can pop the things off. But you don't have to have two stands. It just makes things a lot easier. I've done it with the bike upside down, just on the floor. Having two stands just makes it a lot easier because you can just pop things over like boop, 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 boop without having to wrestle the bike. So let's get into it. Dropouts going in. Cool thing about this frame is that you can do both vertical and horizontal dropouts. But since we're using gears on this one, we're going to be using the vertical dropouts. You're going to use a 6mm on the inside and a 5mm on the outside. Drive side is good and tight. And repeat on the non-drive side. Dropout inserts are inserted. Open up the brakes. Now that the brakes are free, let's go ahead and take the wheel out. And let's admire these dropouts. Woo! They're really nice. Rear wheel going in. Perfect. Now there is something cool about these wheels. My buddy Tommy over at Cutlass Velo in Baltimore, he built these for me, and they use a radial non-drive side and a 2-cross drive side. And basically I wanted these wheels to be as lightweight as possible, and this is what he recommended, and they have been really true. Look at I don't know if you can see it quite, but look at the butting on those spokes. Let's see if we can reuse this chain, because it's still in good shape and the proportions aren't too different. as far as the chainstay length. So let's just try and see. Let's take the derailleurs off. 5mm for the pinch bolt. Let's put that barrel adjuster back in. And a 5mm for the big hanger bolt. Let's make the transfer. Woo! Looks good. Next up is the crankset, so we can get to the bottom bracket. And our cranks use a 8mm self-extracting screw on the inside, so we don't need any other special tools to get these cranks off, which is always nice. Ugh. Ugh. There we go. Drive side off, and non-drive side coming off. Now, I'm actually not too familiar with what this bottom bracket is. Maybe it's a Shimano or something. Taking the bottom bracket, non-drive side cup off. To take it off, you go forwards, counterclockwise. Let's see what this is. It might be a Shimano. Whatever it is, it's loose. Same thing with the drive side. Ooh, that was loose. Yep, good old UN 73. Grease the threads. Even though this isn't a Velo Orange bottom bracket, it's still in good shape. I'm going to use it. I usually like to put the non-drive side cup in a little bit to locate the spindle so I don't cross thread the drive side threads. Drive side going in. Tightening drive side counterclockwise. Tightening non-drive side clockwise. Wait. Clockwise. Good and tight. Okay. Let's talk greasing tapers. I'll be honest with you. I have greased my tapers for years. Now, here's the thinking about people that say you're not supposed to grease your tapers, is that because it's greased, the crank arm, and this is tapered, meaning it has kind of a sort of triangle shape. When you put the crankset on and you tighten it, it can go too far. You can potentially split the taper. That really only happens is if you really reef on it. Now, the counterpoint is that if you don't grease the taper, you don't know when to stop. Because basically what happens is if it's dry, it'll go to a certain point and then you tighten a little bit more and it almost feels like it jumps the taper a little bit and then it cracks. Either way, I've just greased the taper and it's worked for me. I've never split a crank. So this is what I do. Drive side crank arm going in. Oh, and by the way, the Drillium crankset, like our 50.4 crankset, suggested use is a 118 bottom bracket. That's it. Non-drive side going on. Front derailleur coming off. 5mm for the pinch bolt. And 5mm for the mounting screw. Now, if you notice, this is a braze-on front derailleur, so we'll need an adapter, which I think we have. I actually did find a mount. This guy. It's actually really nice because this one doesn't have any up and down adjustability, but you can adjust it side to side. So we're gonna leave this guy. Reuse this screw. This is awkward. All right, front derailleur and clamp going on. Have to lower it so that it has good shifting. There we go. That's actually pretty well lined up. Maybe I'll lower this guy a little bit. So let's get it preliminary setup and go from there. Let's see how the chain looks. Put the chain on the little ring, pull it through a little bit, put it on the highest gear, through the jockey wheel, around the jockey wheel, around the other jockey wheel. Let's see. Yeah, I think we're going to need a new chain. So comparing chainstay lengths between the two bikes, this one has a chainstay length of 420 and the Waterford has a chainstay length of 410, which when you combine that, just has a chain that's too short. So we'll have a new chain day. Got a fresh chain here. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to take 2 pairs of links off. So we're going to cut it right here. I recounted and we're actually going to take 3 pairs of links out. Take a little bit of the chain off the little chain ring. And let's get the quick link together. Put a little bit of tension on it. I ran the chain to above the chainstay so we can put some tension on it. And let's just push on the pedals to see if we can set it into place. Done. All right, we're cruising. 5mm to remove the brake cable and 5mm on the back side for the recessed nut. Let's see if this works. Yeah, unfortunately, this just isn't going to work. I adjusted the pads as far down as we can go, and even if I file the brake pad channel, it's still not going to be low enough to hit the brake track. So back into the bin you go, Dura Ace single pivot brakes. Now I'm trying to put this build together without taking anything out of stock. So I found these in the parts bin. Unfortunately, they're not silver, but maybe we'll find some silver ones later down the line. One thing you do want to keep in mind with our Grand Cru long reach brakes is that the brake bolt is plastic, and that is so that it is carbon frame and fork compatible. Because if you really screw down a stainless steel one, you're more likely to damage the frame or damage the fork. So use the included tool and you'll be all set. Let's get these guys on. Rear brake going on, and the rear has the shorter of the brake bolts. Goes in. Excuse me. I'll reposition you for a better look. Let's just get it tight and then we'll adjust afterwards. There we go. Now we're going to remove the handlebars and stem, and we're going to move them over to the other bike. Now, one thing you're going to notice is all of this is going to have to come off. We're going to have to change the housing, the cables, everything, because the location of the cable stops on the down tube is so close to the head tube that the housing is going to be way too short, as opposed to having the stops up here, or rather down here on the down tube. So we're going to have to get some new cables and housing. 5mm for the stem bolts. Now, keen observers will notice that this is actually not a threadless system. This is an adapter that I slammed, and I put some spacers in here to kind of clean it up a little bit. It's kind of like you look at it from 10 feet away, you might not notice that it's threaded, but it is. And that's our stem adapter. Let's remove this stem. Just using this for a fork holder, really. We have a tapered spacer. And let's see, this one. And let's see, this one. This one? And then this one? No. Let's swap it around a little bit. How about this? That's not bad. We're getting there. Maybe this, and this, and this. No. this, 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 and this. Yeah, that's it. What do you think? Is that too much stack? Let's sit on the bike and see how it feels. Let's see. It's a little high. It's a little high. I'll probably bring it down a little bit and maybe even flip the stem. All right, took out a 5mm spacer. Now I'm going to mark where we're going to cut the steer. So there's that mark that we made for cutting. Now what you want to do is cut a little bit, a couple millimeters below your mark so that you can get adequate preload when you compress the whole thing using the top cap. So we're going to cut right here. All right, now you just got to clean up the steer and we'll be good to go to install. Starfangle tool, insert, no grease. Start hammering. Those little shocks will allow it to move just enough so that it's nice and flush. Let's put the fork back in. So the order goes fork crown race, put a little bit of grease for where the bearing lives. Oop, I got it on my chin. Bearing grease on top too. So fork crown race, then bearing with the chamfer side up, then insert, bearing, chamfer side down, and split compression ring, push it all the way down, then very thin spacer, bearing cover, upper bearing cover, and then for spacers, we're going to do tapered and tall brass mirror stem. Gonna just tighten this just for a little bit so it doesn't fall out. Let's go find a tap cap for this guy. Here's a view of how the steer should look under the top cap. See how there's a little bit, maybe there's a millimeter or two under the stem, and so that is so that you can get proper preload when you put the top cap on and tighten down the whole system. Now I remembered that I have this very nice looking top cap from our friends over in Japan at Runwell. They no longer make this, but it's made out of hand hammered copper. And it's been sitting on my desk for so long, just waiting for a project, that I kind of had forgotten about it. But now it is part of my bicycle. Now I'm loosening this guy. Now stem is free. And we're going to tighten this just a little bit so that it compresses everything so I don't have any knock. That feels good. Tighten stem bolts down, and we're good to go. Let's get on those down tube adjusters. Found these brass button head screws. These are perfect. Not a huge torque application. They look nice, and I think they'll match the headset pretty well. Drive side on. Time to take off the old bar tape. I mean, it is really cool, but it just doesn't match the vibes anymore. The vibes are off. That's what it's all about. It's all about the vibes. Okay, there's probably a lot of people wondering, why am I using these old style integrated shifters, or brifters as they're called? Well, number one, they look really cool. Very rare. That's what's important. And number two, these are super easy to work on. So you have the cable that comes out here. It's called non-arrow shifting. The cable comes out there, but more importantly, when you need to service them, the cable just comes right out, as opposed to trying to fish it out from the bottom with the new stuff that inevitably will break a shifter head on the inside, and then you have to go fishing for it. So it's as easy as that to change a shift cable. So here's a good way to save a few bucks with your cables. The cables for the left front shifter are too short. We're going to have to throw them away. But the cables on the right rear are longer. So we're going to transfer the cables from the right to the left, and we'll be able to save a few bucks. Front brake going on. Front wheel going in. Rear brake cable going in. This is the little house where you're going to put the cable in. There we are. Okay, now we're going to measure the housing length. Just kind of put it in the shifter, mock it up, and go to the brake stop right here. Remember graceful bends? That looks pretty good. So here's where we're going to cut the housing. So the inside of it is a little bit flattened, but we have a tool for that. So when we have a flattened end like this, sometimes I like to take a side cutter like these and just snip it off just that little extra metal. Now we can just pass the cable right through there. Now the Shimano housing cutter started going a little dull on me, but this little tool that kind of comes with the housing cutter has this really pointy guy. We just put that in there, wiggle it around and open it up. And so now there's going to be no friction when you put that cable into its housing. Put the cable into the housing, string it through, and put the housing in its home inside the shifter. Housing cap on the other side of your housing, and insert into the cable stop. These are brass cable, no wait, these are brass housing ends. That's what these are called. And I really like them. They look nice. It gives a little bit of warmth to the bike, and over time they will patina. So what I like to do, because what you don't want to happen is you don't want corrosion, so I put a little bit of grease on that housing and shove it in there. Now if you have a housing end that's a little bit problematic, it's kind of pointy, you can just take a file to the end of it and file it until it's nice and smooth. I already cut the short run of housing here, cable stop, and then we're going to go into here for the brake, pull that through, into the stop, put the cable through the pinch bolt, and route it through, give the brake a little squeeze, and tighten it down. Make sure you drop your wrench. Maybe we'll put that in an ASMR video of working on bikes. It's a little bit hard to see, but we need to adjust the rear brake because look how this pad is hitting. It's hitting crooked, and the trailing edge of the brake pad is hitting first. That's no good. 4mm on the brake pad bolt. Now it's free. What I like to do is I like to give it a little bit of a squeeze and make sure that the pad is sitting kind of middle of the rim. What is it called? What is this called? The brake track. And tighten it down. Sometimes you might have to hold it at the same time as you turn it so that the pad carrier doesn't spin around. There we go. That side's done. Let's move over to the other side. Same thing on the non-drive side. Kind of set it where you think it's going to be. Give it a squeeze. Do some minor adjustments. And then tighten it down. Like I said, sometimes you need to hold it in place so that as you tighten it, the whole thing doesn't spin, undoing all of your hard work. And now, both brakes hit nicely. Right now, both pads are equidistant from the rim, but if you needed to do some adjustments to get the brake just so centered. This little 2mm screw, you can screw it in and it brings the spring tension this way so that this pad goes away from the rim, or you can loosen it and it moves the entire brake so that the center line of it is towards the non-drive side. I'm going to bring it back to where we were. Give the brake a squeeze. We're back in business. Now we're going to cut the rear brake cable. Cable cap. Secure it. Done. Rear brake done. And copy and paste the entire process on the front. So for the shifting, pretty much the same sort of deal as with the braking. We're going to mock it up, make some graceful bends, and then install the housing and the shifting cable. Here's how easy it is to install a shift cable on these non-aero brake levers. Just goes right through, pull it through. That's it. New shift cable installed. So here's a trick. This is going to be the housing we're using on the right side. And since the housing leaving the shifters is symmetrical, I'm going to go ahead and just kind of measure that one and then cut the longer length to size. And now we have two identical lengths of housing. There we are. Housing cap on the housing, cable going in, pull it through. There we are. Cable through the down tube cable stop. Now you can cross housing if you want. For example, you can go for the rear shifter, you can put it on here, or you can put it here. I like to put it on this side because then the cables aren't crossing when it goes underneath. And that can interfere if you have like a water bottle cage or something like that. Cable going in. There we are. Cable going under the bottom bracket shell and into the housing, into the barrel adjuster. Nice graceful bends here. Going into the pinch bolt. Man, I got so excited installing this derailleur that I didn't even bother to check the limit screws. So this jockey wheel is too far outboard. So we're going to use this screw to screw it in and adjust the high limit. That's not it. That's not the right screw. These aren't labeled, so it's try and see sort of thing. That time I was wrong. So this upper screw adjusts the position. Let's see, how's that look? A little bit more. That looks pretty good right there. All right, redo the pinch bolt. Now that we have its correct position. And now let's see how it shifts. Need some more tension, some more cable tension. Ah, look at that. All right, I got everything tensioned up and it's shifting very nicely. Look at that. Look at that light action. And it's very quiet. And copy and paste on the other side. Okay, now we're going to route the front derailleur cable This is the bottom bracket guide. This is the rear derailleur. And then this is going to be the front derailleur. Through here, right in front of the chainstay bridge. And up. We're at the front derailleur through the pinch bolt. And tighten it down. All right, I'll admit, this derailleur was set up perfectly. But I'll go through a couple factoids. So this is a 10-speed front derailleur. Now, what I really like about 10-speed is that the cage compared to 11-speed is slightly wider, which means that you can cross-chain in the big ring and the big cog without having to do hardly any trim, if at all. So we're going to go up to the big chain ring, and we are cross-chaining. We're in big right now, and it's quiet. There's no rubbing on the inside of the cage, but everything still shifts perfectly. So you can be in any gear in the back, and you'll still be golden. This is why I really like this era of 10-speed components. And as far as the limit screws go, oh my God, that was terrible. As far as the limit screw, oh my gosh. As far as the limit screws go, this one controls the low limit screw, so more inboard for your lower chain ring, and this one controls your big chain ring and the high limit. Now, here comes the hard part. What handlebar tape are we going to wrap onto these bars? So these are my thinking pickles. You want them? They're really good. Right? So this is actually the saddle we're going to use. It's a really old VO leather saddle. It's kind of fancy because it has titanium rails. But I've had this on so many different bikes. It's very comfortable, and this one's going to be going on there. So since this is brown, we're going to go with some brown rubbery tape. So like I've said in these videos before, I am not a magnificent bar tape wrapper. I'd say I'm very proficient. I'm proficient in bar tape wrapping. So here's what I like to do. At the end, instead of kind of shoving everything in there, I kind of just go right to the end, just like that. And when the plug goes in, it'll be covered up nicely. We start wrapping. When you're wrapping the rubbery tape, notice that part of it has 4 dots and part of it has no dots. So when you're wrapping, you're going to overlap it where there's no dots. You're going to keep going around like that. Just like that. All right, now when you get to this spot, we're going to figure out exactly how long this is going to be, and we're going to make a cut at the end. So we're going to cut it right here, and then we're going to make a diagonal cut to make sure the end looks nice. So we're going to make a cut towards the stem. No, wait, how is it going to go? Yeah, so cut towards the stem. I'm going to zoom you out. So we're going to make a cut towards the stem. And then just like that. Be nice and flush. Get your finest electrical tape. And finish that edge just like that. You didn't see that. All right. That's pretty good. Now that your bar is wrapped, put your hoods back. And admire your work. Look at that transition on the ramps from here to here. That's going to be super comfortable. With these non-aero shifters, it's very comfortable here as well as here because these are fairly bulbous. So I like to hang out right here on the hoods sometimes. Far end plug going in. Because nobody likes to have a core sample taken of themselves. And copy and paste on the other side. For an accessory, I decided to go with a side-loading crescent water bottle cage. I'm probably just going to do one for now because it is still winter and you just don't drink as much water as you do in the summer. But we'll add another one later down the line. So the crescent side-loading cage is really nice. It's easy to get stuff in and out. There you are. Now, one thing you want to keep in mind is that these come in two variants. This is the right side, and then this is the left side. So if you were right-handed and you wanted to pull the bottle out on the drive side, you would want one right and one left so that they open up on the same side. All right, we got to swap the saddle. 6mm underneath. Let's loosen it up. Ugh. Twist some things until it comes out. Ugh. New saddle going in. Well, not new. Different saddle going in. And then we'll adjust the angle of everything after we get this buttoned up. Now with this 1B seat post, you want to make sure that this curved washer matches the underside of the curve of the seat post. Because if it's sideways, it's not going to tighten up properly. Okay, let's bring the bike down and do the final adjustments. Well, that's not going to be very comfortable, so let's do a little bit of tilt. That's pretty medium, like right in the middle of the rails. Pretty level saddle. Tighten it down. Make it good and tight. There we go. Well, my new bike is all done, and I'm very excited. So let's get it out of the stand. Let's take it out in the sun and go for a ride. Oh, I almost forgot you. Let's go.